And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba as we continue our team-by-team previews across all 30 teams around Major League Baseball to get you ready for the 2023 fantasy baseball season. We stick with the NL Central and we go to Cincinnati to Great American Small Park, a great hitter's heaven, and hopefully pitchers for some of the guys on the roster this year. In order to help me break down the Cincinnati Reds, is a good friend of the show, good friend of mine. You can find him on RotoWire.com, maybe on Sirius XM Radio, on the podcast that all people listen to on Sunday nights, which with Scott Jenstead. He's on Twitter at Jeff_Erickson. Jeff Erickson, how are we doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to ride Scott's coattails again this year, so should be super fun. Fred Zinke on Tuesdays too. Got to make sure Fred gets his love too.
He does. That's an amazing.
Awesome.
That's a great show because Fred's got quite the fantasy mind when it comes to trades and other things. So yeah,
and track record in the expert leagues too. I mean, he is one of the very best.
So yeah, it's a good call. You can't do that. You got James hosting Wednesdays.
Yeah,
you got the slew of options there at RotoWire, of course, because baseball is in full swing now. Jeff, I don't know if you heard, but football's over, so it's baseball season.
It ended 2 weeks ago, as far as I'm concerned. But and we're doing 5 podcasts a week. Doing the Thursday podcast, which will get you on again this season. I'm off this Thursday because FSGAs, but got the great Sarah Sanchez talking Cubs with me and Tout Wars in 2 weeks. So looking forward to that. Yeah, it's lots of baseball talk. Going to daytime starting next week on Sirius XM.
Beautiful.
Starting on Monday the 20th, noon to 2 Eastern, 9 to 11 Best Coast. So can't wait for that too.
And then I'll do the shameless plug for you. I believe there's like a free 10-day trial at RotoWire.
It's a free trial. It's rotowire.com/pod. It's a free peek behind the paywall. It's no longer 10 days, but just ping us at support at rotowire.com and we'll work with you. It's all good. But we want you to take a peek at it, take a look at our projections, our articles, you name it. And if you've got a concern with one of them, just reach me. I'll respond even. And hopefully you'll want to subscribe.
For fun, real quick, before we get into the Reds, I know you do like majority, if not all, of the projections for RotoWire when it comes to baseball. And I know you've talked about it before. You like doing like 3-year averages and these other type mixed year formula that you like. How are you handling it with, you have a 2020 season mixed in right now. You have a different baseball every season. You have different rules every season.
Yeah.
Like, how are you kind of going about that?
I'm just guessing as best like everybody else, the best we can. I mean, I try to, I think last year has to have a little bit more weight than it usually would, just because the 2020 season was just complete aberration. So it's really hard to compare that versus any other season, especially with the completely unbalanced schedule. And then you add in, we got rule changes this year and a WBC, so it's never normal. I think we always want to say we just want to have a normal year. This is as close as we're going to get. Full spring training except WBC and new rule changes.
If we have videos of actual pitchers and catchers in spring training camp right now. So it's about as normal we've gotten as of February 14th. So that's a really nice thing these days. Well, let's talk Cincinnati Reds, Jeff. Let's have some fun with this. And we'll kick it off with your starting second baseman, Jonathan India. Rough 2022 season based on the injuries he dealt with. I think he came back too early the first time. But now you're getting an ADP of like 180-ish, 181, which seems like a nice deal if you believe in a bounce back. So what do you think about India for 2023?
So I went back and forth on India with the Triple Play podcast guys, and I'm a little lower than the crowd because I think the StatCast numbers are, not great. I think it's red is good there. So blue, they're very blue, I think there. And I get he was playing hurt a lot. So that might be it. He had a nice stretch in September before he got hurt again. He's going to run. I think that's a good thing. I hope he's going to run. He needs to run to really justify it a whole lot. I'm going to take him in the low range of his range, though. I haven't been taking him at 180. I think there are a lot of second basemen in that area. And I'm often looking for stolen bases from the position. So I guess I want a little bit more from that. There's plenty of things that, reasons that you could believe in a bounce back, but you got to believe that A, he's going to stay healthy. B, he's going to turn around some of those hard hit metrics and C, run the ball. Well, I mean, run a little bit more often. Still trying to transition here, guys. Work with me. He's, I can see a profit. You don't really have to kind of squint to see where I could be wrong on this one. Nonetheless, there's other guys I like a little bit better at that range.
Yeah, no, he's been one that I totally see where he can become a value if he returns to the rookie of the year form. but at the same time, is he going to return to that rookie of the year form is the question. So it's not like a must pick for me at 180, but at least I consider it based on how the draft's flowing at that point in time. But
Right.
yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like at first, when I dug in, like say November, I'm like, oh, this is too great. He's got to be a value at this point. And then you start looking at it some more, like you mentioned, it's not as Captain Obvious as it seems.
Right. Like for instance, I would take Jake Cronenworth a little bit later. He got a few picks later. I'd take him over India. I'd take Jeff McNeil over India. I'd probably take Luis Arias, but although going to Miami doesn't help him, I mean, it's and Brandon Drury is a fun little one to discuss too, just because I mean, new ballpark again. Was this just like Cincinnati Magic, or is he going to be able to do this in Anaheim? But Drury also, you get 3 positions out of that
That's
too,
big.
which is another thing I like.
Yeah, I like that a lot with Drury. And it looks like the Angels are going to try to play him as much as possible. So that's a big plus as well. Let's go to the interesting outfield situation. We'll start with TJ Friedl, who is projected on roster resource to lead off. We'll see how that plays out. He could platoon as well. ADP of like 354. So he's essentially going late free in drafts. We saw a little power, a little speed in his time last season. What's your outlook for a guy like Friedl?
I'm warming up, Jim. That's a guy I grabbed actually in the Arizona Fall League First Pitch Arizona Speakers draft. We started this Draft Champions League in late January. We finished it up a couple of weeks ago. I actually sniped Doug Dennis, so that's actually good because Doug's a smart guy. So I like doing that. The thing is, we're going for cheap speed. I mean, that's all we're really going for here. And if he happens to get, a little bit of extra power in there as well. He had 8 homers last year. All the better. I mean, he's hitting in a good park. Obviously, it's a tragic lineup. When they go on the road, you're going to probably want to avoid him. But I view him like Jake Fraley a lot, where great home streamer.
Yeah, that leads us right into Jake Fraley. That's why I've been looking at Friedl in Draft Champions, like you mentioned, and he's been kind of standing out as the late outfield source that I've been targeting because you have Jake Fraley going almost 100 picks sooner, 70, 80 picks sooner, and maybe doesn't run as much. But what's your thoughts between the two with like a Jake Fraley and a Friedl? Obviously, you said they're better at home than on the road, but how do you look at those two?
I think Fraley is a better hitter. I think there's 220 as an outcome for him, but so is 275, 280. And I think that the shift rules might help him a little bit too. So, and you're getting a little bit more power. Find that week where he gets 5 right-handed starters, 6 right-handed starters. Oh, that would be that, especially at home. That would be wonderful. I think I find myself probably talking myself into Fraley and Friedl more than any other Red hitters. There's not too many others that I'm that interested in.
Yeah, it's a streaming club, as you kind of mentioned. It's like we used to do with Coors. You get it with Great America.
Yeah.
And you have some fun there, and there's definitely options in that regard for sure. This one's tough, and I know it's got to be tough for you being a Reds fan forever, is Joey Votto. And last year was not a great year. That's putting it nicely. But he's still out there. He's still Joey Votto. His ADP is like 475 right now. Is he just kind of sailing off into the sunset for you, Jeff, or is there a chance to see a little bit of a resurgence for you?
I think there could be a Pujols-esque bump. I don't think I hope it's more Pujols and less Miggy.
True.
I mean, he was so hurt last year that I really want to kind of just write it off, but he's also at an age where, players get hurt more, they recover slower. All these things are things that can happen. I mean, I think at that price, sure, whatever. In a 12-team mixed league, he's not going to get drafted. Probably in a 15-teamer in a main event, you're talking around 29 or 30. Sure, he's going to play. Probably not every day. He'll probably be at a decent spot in the lineup. Again, he's a streamer at home.
Yeah, he's been one I keep looking at in drafts. I'm like, I want to do it. I don't think I've done it yet, but it's
only jersey I own, by the way, for a baseball player.
And I've seen that jersey a few times. That's a first pitch special right
yes,
there.
It is. So, yes, it is.
Yes, definitely. It's a good jersey to own.
Should have worn it for this. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's funny you mentioned it, like a side note on the jersey things. I've always been that way. I only buy jerseys almost when a guy's retired or I know he's basically going to retire with the team because people change so often. It's like I have my Will Clark jerseys. I have a couple other jerseys. I just can't, buy someone that's like, it's
I've got 3. Well, one's even like a sweatshirt jersey. And that's Joe Burrow. That's the only contemporaneous, like young player I have. But Votto and Steve Yzerman. So
Iserman,
yeah.
and and I'm not going to say it's just to placate my guest on the show, but Burrow better be a Bengal for a long time. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like that's one of those like find the money people. Make it.
I also I mean they sold the naming rights to the stadium. They're moving heaven and earth to make sure he gets signed. And from all impressions I get, he wants to be there and
He's an
wants to be
Ohio
there for
kid. He wants
life.
to be
So
there.
yeah, so I think it's shaping up pretty well. We'll find out in a couple of months on that one there.
Good. All right, let's go to the catcher's position here with Tyler Stephenson, ADP of 132. We know the hitting skills are pretty good, especially batting average wise for a catcher. He just hurt a ton last year. He can play first base also, but there's that guy Joey Votto down there. But with a healthy Stevenson and the way the catcher's position sets up, there's definitely a spot for him. How do you view Tyler Stevenson this year?
I view him as someone I'm going to probably have a little bit of. The thing is, they're already talking about playing 130, 140 games, getting him DH and first base starts here and there. They're talking about carrying 3 catchers. Kirk Casale and Luke Malley would be the other 2. Both veteran-ish catchers, so they don't feel like they're losing a whole lot. The pitchers like pitching to both of those catchers. So the second concussion with Stephenson was kind of scary. It's all the first one. Okay, that happens. Second one, you're like, this could linger a while. I mean, witness what happened with Tua in football this year. And same thing is kind of an issue there in baseball. We've seen it before. Joe Mauer, name your Minnesota Twin basically, and you've had concussion issues with them and how they've lingered. So it's always kind of scary to watch. But I think, BABIP was a little bit high with Stephenson. I think we all expect the batting average to come down. It's always a regress to what situation, not whether he'll regress. But nonetheless, he's one of the catchers I happen to like. There's a lot of good young catchers in the game right now. We're lucky.
Yeah, we're definitely lucky in that regard. And I like some of the stuff you mentioned there about they want to get him on the field besides just catching. We talk about at bats. I had the wonderful task of writing about like 50 catchers already this offseason, and you realize how quickly just a bunch of them you're hoping for 100 games real quickly. So if you get 130, 140 out of a guy like Stevenson, that just catapults him up the list in a big way. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, one of your new Reds in Mr. Will Myers. I know I've spouted off a lot about how excited I am about this. I'm also kind of tongue-in-cheek at the same time because it is Will Myers. He has to stay healthy to make this work. But an ADP of 230, going to that ballpark where it seems like they kind of want to or have to play him a little bit, there's appeal to me in this one. I don't know what your thoughts are on Will Myers.
He's this year's Randall Grichuk.
Oh, no.
Average guy going to a great hitting environment probably bumps him a little bit, but not as much as you think it will.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. Unfortunately, and that's the thing is he's got to stay healthy. He doesn't run like he used to, so you're hoping for 20 home runs and things pan out for you. But then again, goes to a different ballpark as you mentioned, and that gets kind of murky as well. So I'm
I
still
need to
interested.
send that to Justin Mason. By the way, he's got that series. Who is this year's X? version? I need to jump on that one before someone else claims it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because everyone wants to say he's this year's Tommy Pham, but I don't think anyone's going to trade for Will Myers. So I think that's the difference. But we'll see. I mean, the thing is, 230, it's fine. Can he stay healthy? Can he hit for average? These are things. I mean, I think the ballpark's definitely going to help him. I always tend to think these good hitting environments make good hitters a lot better. They don't make bad hitters good. And not that he's saying Will Myers is bad.
That's a good point, though.
I think he's he's a replacement level MLB hitter. So I'll make him slightly above replacement level now.
That's a good point, though, about the good ball, the hitting ballparks, how they affect certain hitters more than others.
Right.
Let's talk about Spencer Steer here. Everyone's kind of hyped up for him to come up last year. Didn't really do much in his first debut, his first cup of coffee. Shown a little bit of promise in the minors, though. Looks to have a job coming out of camp now. So you can get him in an ADP of 420 in draft champions. How are you approaching Spencer Steer?
I am not going to lasso Steer and try to make sure he's mine, but same time,
are you going to steer clear of him?
I won't steer clear either. Very good, Bubba. Nice. I like that you're getting in the spirit of this. Hey, stop me if you're this. He's a home streamer, but and he'll play for now, but he's going to have to hit pretty quickly because the Reds have a lot of shortstops that won't be shortstops eventually coming. And at some point in time, someone's going to. So if there's a whole number of guys that are going to be pushing for that playing time in the second half of the season. Right, for the short term, it's like Steer and Kevin Newman starting on that left side of the infield, but I would predict that neither of them will be starting by the end of the year.
That's good news for those Kevin Newman people out there. I'll say that much. That's why I didn't even put him on the outline, because I was like, we're not going to pretend this is going to have an impact at some point in time. But I am going to pretend that Nick Senzel is going to be healthy some season, Jeff. And I saw your tweet earlier today, about an hour before we recorded.
Can't quit him.
So ADP of 520. It's like you got to take a shot here and there when it comes to that talent. But what are your thoughts? Because I think we're realists at the same time.
Number 2 overall pick in the draft. What could go wrong? The Reds screwed him up. Now, the problem is you can't undo that. I mean, it stays screwed. That's the problem. And he went 4 months without walking. I just saw today. It's just, that sounds scary. Doesn't sound like a guy that's going to run a lot.
Yeah.
What are they going to put him at? What position are they going to put him at this year? Catcher? I don't know. It's so aggravating seeing that. But he finally got a chance last year and then got hurt so many times. They just added Will Benson, and I think Benson's going to play more than people think. I think Benson's a threat to Friedl too, by the way, and Fraley. I mean, Benson's a guy that had a prospect pedigree at one point in time. I think he's got decent on-base skills. He's someone that could be sneakily involved in the playing time picture here a little bit. So, if I don't think Senzel looks good now. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not ready for the start of the season. Wouldn't be surprised if he's in a platoon. And yet I will probably add him in one DC somewhere down the line, or some really deep league. I'll probably, take a chance on him.
Yeah, that pedigree's there, so I don't blame you one bit on that one, especially at his ADP basically coming in free for you right now. Anybody else worth mentioning? There's the Newmans, there's Chad Penders, there's a couple catchers. I'm not seeing anything that stands out as a big target right now.
Goodbye, Newman. No.
Yes,
And Pinder could be that guy that hits, runs into a few fastballs and takes advantage of that relatively short porch in left field. But he comes with an obvious cost. He's going to strike out 100 times so fast it'll make your head spin. So, yeah, you're a Bay Area guy. You know this all too well.
Yep. He's if you got a bunch of lefties and he's in Cincinnati for the week, go ahead and pick him up. That's what I'll tell you right now. That's about all he's going to be worth for me this season. Let's go to the mound, though, where there is some definite optimism, or at least some hype and excitement in Cincinnati. And we'll start with Hunter Greene, ADP around 111. We saw how he finished the year, definitely looked like an improved arm, kind of got it going, was just dominant. So what are your hopes for Greene in 2023?
I think there always is the talk, if you could only add a third pitch or improve a third pitch. As if it were that easy, they do it. I mean, so many times you hear that. Greene's awesome when he's on. He's super fun to watch. I got to see him in person this last year in that Dodgers start where he actually pitched pretty well. I worry about him staying healthy. I worry about the team context, the ballpark context. The Brewers seem to get to him pretty readily a couple of times. I think the thing is, can he go 6 innings? Can he get through that 2.5, 3 times through the order? Or did they start to get the measure of him? He needs to improve. The curveball's great. I mean, he needs to getting that changeup going. He bagged it on occasions, as our outlook says. He needs that, especially against lefties.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, because he kept the ball in the park, stopped walking guys towards the end of the season. We'll see if it can continue on. That takes us to Nick Lodolo, though, who's going 12 picks behind Hunter Greene. And, this guy, he's got like a Chris Sale vibe to him, the way he is on the mound out there. Very, very strong stuff. So how are you thinking about Lodolo? And then would you rather go Lodolo or Greene?
I'd rather go Lodolo over Greene. Tristan Cockcroft from ESPN is a mean, nasty, awful person. Took him 1 pick before me, and that said speaker's draft. I like Lodolo a lot. I think he's super polished. The walks are a little bit concerned. Obviously, durability is a concern. Same team context problems there. But if I had to choose the long-term career of either, I take Lodolo over Greene, and without a whole lot of hesitation.
Okay. That's interesting, because, I get torn between the two, and I usually end up falling to Lodolo between the two because he's going later. That's just my preference.
That's a fine philosophy.
But it's just like I like both of them, and I think one of our recent shows with me and Bloomfield, someone asked, because we were doing ADPs like 100 to 150, and they said, what pitchers in this range could you foresee being like a top 2 or 3 round pick next year? And we both said Greene and Lodolo. We wouldn't be shocked if it was either one of them. Like they have that ceiling at the same time that they're so young, it could get kind of blow up in your face also. Yeah. But this is where you kind of get to the draft. If like these are your SP3s potentially, maybe 4 if you're really aggressive on pitching.
Right.
They could be ceiling guys, and that'd be quite interesting as you build things up there.
I mean, you look at the Reds organization. I mean, they need these 2 guys to really make it because, I mean, Graham Ashcraft could be interesting, but they don't have a whole lot behind. Brandon Williamson came over last year from the Mariners in the Winker Eugenio Suarez trade. Turns out it was a Suarez trade, not the Winker trade, although I didn't think it was going to be that case. And he didn't have a good year. He didn't really develop like they thought. They added some live arms like Chase Petty. They got some other interesting possible arms, but most of their prospects are infielders. Like if you look at our depth chart and you look at our RotoWire prospects in the top 400, the top 9 prospects in the system are all infielders. Yeah. So that gives you an indication. Now, infielders can move anywhere. That take that, especially shortstops can move anywhere. So you kind of take that philosophy. But the point is, like I think this is a good way to build a system. You build the hitters first, and then you can parachute the arms in. It's like what the Astros did, what the Cubs did when they did a tear down and rebuild. I don't count on the Reds doing the rebuild part of it there, though. That's the thing is, I think that, but I mean, you look at that, they got their farm system's loaded with guys, and that's why Steer really has to hit well because there's Ellie De La Cruz, there's Marte, there's Cam Collier eventually, and Encarnacion Strand. I mean, they've got guys that are just coming out of their ears in the infield. So McLean's another guy that's really interesting. So, but they don't have the pitchers. They don't have a whole lot. Now, I think it's hard to draft pitchers well. Obviously, I mean, the Angels one year spent all of their first 20 picks on pitchers one year, and they're struggling to get like 2 guys out of that class. I mean, it's not easy.
No, it's not with all the arm issues, and that's why even like just you can take it from a real life to like I said, dynasty startup league. I always prefer get all my hitters and I'll figure out pitching later or stuff along those lines because it's tricky. It's tricky. That's why I prefer I'd rather have my team be like the Reds and have all these bats you can develop, and then whatever money you feel like spending, because we know they don't spend a lot, but whatever they spend on starting pitching. Go do that. Go get some veteran pitchers. Figure it out in that regard. I think that's a much better philosophy to go by, and that's why I didn't put anybody after Greene Lodolo because you mentioned it's Ashcraft, it's Sessa, it's a slew of I don't knows.
Yeah. The Overton window is closed on us. We don't know.
Yeah, it's over, as they'd say. Yeah. Anything else that starting pitching wise, or is it just kind of let's move into the fun that's the bullpen?
Let's talk Ashcraft for just a nanosecond because he throws hard. He just doesn't get the strikeouts. He's a ground ball machine, just has never really gotten the strikeouts. But I mean, you look at him, you see how hard he throws. Like, where are the strikeouts? He just doesn't have that other. He does obviously the off speed offerings aren't there, but I could see him taking a step. He took a leap in the minors and, especially in 2021. So you might see like a second year at a level where he gets a little bit of a step forward. We're talking a streamer again on the road this time though. Yeah, but someone that, and you never want to have a guy that you can't use at home. That's always like the Gene McCaffrey rule. Always want, if you can't use a pitcher in his home ballpark, what are you doing rostering him unless it's just as a streamer?
True. That always is the Rockies conundrum. So, and as we've seen, Great America, better hitters parked than Coors lately. So it's crazy. Even scarier. Bullpen now. This is the thing, and I've heard you say, and I'm 100% on board. I'm pretty sure with what you're going to say is, I just don't trust anybody here because it's a revolving door in Cincinnati. Alexis Diaz is awesome, but how do you see this bullpen playing out if you're looking at a fantasy perspective?
I mean, Diaz was awesome in a small sample, as a lot of relievers are. And I don't trust David Bell. There's that yet. I almost went up to 20 saves on Diaz. That's not enough to get him, by the way. I think, you got to have him projected for 30 saves if you're using any sort of ranking algo that's connected to projections. It's for you to get him at the ADP cost, but he's the most likely guy to close, but it's David Bell. He'll use Diaz in the 5th so fast it'll make your head spin. He'll do that just because. TJ Antone had a setback, so that's one less guy. We don't know what Lucas Sims is going to be this spring. We'll watch him closely. But Santillan could be there. Reaver San Martin. It doesn't matter who's there.
Yep.
He'll find things. I mean, the fact is, no one was mentioning Alexis Diaz's name last year, really. I mean, not until he got the first save and he looked good a little bit. And like, watch the metrics. See how well he's pitching. maybe he's someone you can pick up, but it's tough. It's really tough to count on that.
Very, very true. That's why I kind of just steer clear, as it's just a headache all by itself in
Mhm.
that situation. But Diaz was good, like you said, a small sample, looked really, really good. Um, let's talk some of those prospects that you mentioned earlier that maybe we'll see this year. I know everybody wants to talk about Ellie De La Cruz. He's getting drafted actually pretty well in these DCs. Do you think we see him this year to overtake maybe Newman per se?
If it's not him, it's Marte. It's somebody. But yeah, I love Ellie. I think that, I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, he's YouTube porn right now. I mean,
Yes.
it's just like, oh, there's another homer. Oh, look at him run. I mean, I question a little bit about the defense. And that's, sometimes when we're looking at these shortstop prospects, the defense is the thing that prevents a lot of guys from getting called up a lot of times, and we don't realize it. Sometimes it's like, yeah, he needs to work on his defenses. It becomes like a Twitter meme, but in a lot of cases, it can be true. He's a big guy for shortstop. A lot like O'Neal Cruz, except I think he's a better hitter, better. I mean, he's still got some, plate discipline issues as well. I mean, 94 strikeouts in high A and then 64 more in double A. But man, it's just I'm dreaming on him a lot.
Yeah, he's an impressive guy. I've broke down recently in a little kind of deeper article deal. When you look at him, just with his ADP of 417, like just give him the chance. He seems quite enticing. You mentioned Noelvi Marte's there. Um, I have to ask you, Jose Barrero, are we just done with him, or is there still kind of an open window for Barrero?
There is a tiny little window right
Okay.
now. But because the Reds have said they're not giving up on him yet.
Yeah.
And it's Kevin Newman in front of him. If Barrero has a crazy good spring, they're going to find a way to get him in there a little bit. But this is his last dance right now, because the cavalry's coming. So it's either now or never.
Yeah, it's interesting scrolling through like roster resources, going through your minors. Like they're not sexy by any means. We still have Justin Dunn, who there was hope for at one point in time. You mentioned
Mhm.
Brandon Williamson didn't pan out in his pitching. You got Noelve Marte. There's some interesting names here. You mentioned Will Benson could be something fun. Nick Solak still there if he ever figures that one out.
Yep.
There's
Jason
there
Bossler is there in my house.
Yes,
Yes.
like there's names that honestly we wouldn't be surprised if they put together like a 2-week run where you go and grab them off the waiver wire, then they disappear again for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So the Reds are going to be a fun fantasy team. What's your overall outlook for the Reds in 2023?
Oh, pain. They're going to be really bad. Those guys that you mentioned, I mean, they're trying to strike lightning in the bottle. They've had some, modicum of success. Look at Drury last year. It's just an example. They're going to give playing time is currency, and it's a great hitting environment. They were able to turn Drury into a prospect, which is better than a lot of the NRIs. So this is a team where you pay attention to the NRIs a little bit, at least, especially on the hitting side. Not so much on the pitching side. They don't have Don Gullett and Jim Bowden working together to find the next Pete Shurik, but who knows? Maybe they're certainly going to throw out a lot of things at the wall and see if they stick. That's for sure. But they've had more success on the hitting side. Although they did get Dan Straley and turn him into Luis Castillo.
That's
So,
true.
I mean, bottom fishing can pay, but once you get there, then you have to do something. And I don't see that commitment. That's the problem.
It's a bit of
They
a problem.
can do these little things and get up to 75, 80 wins. Yay, we could be good next year. All we need to do is add these. It's a commitment from ownership. And shockingly, the Bengals got there before the Reds. Mike Brown is notoriously the cheapest owner in the NFL, and he's not cheap anymore. It's a world gone mad.
It's like he tasted what the glory of winning is and wanted to have more of it, where the Reds just haven't got there yet, it feels like.
Well, and they
So,
committed even before that, though, and they signed
that's
like
true.
DJ Reader and Mike Hilton and a couple of guys like that set the cornerstone there. Somehow they convinced them to spend a little bit, and meanwhile, you've got the Reds owners going out and saying they're running the team like a nonprofit. I mean, it's like, or that they are a nonprofit.
They
It
are a
depends on your interpretation of his comments, but just like, stop talking. You're not helping.
The bright side is the ballpark's a great ballpark to visit. I'll say that much.
I haven't visited it yet. You're ahead of me.
Really? No, I had to go to Indianapolis for something, and the Giants just
Nice.
happened to be in town. That was like it's like a 35, 40-minute drive. It's not that far away, it feels like.
I
It
grew
felt
up in
short.
Indy. I grew up in Indy. It's about an hour 40.
I wasn't driving, so it felt a lot quicker coming.
Yeah,
from
well,
my
you're going
seat.
to a ball game, so of
Yeah.
course it's going to feel quicker. So that's good.
Yeah.
I grew up, I grew up in Indy, and I saw Eric Davis play as a minor leaguer. Although I think they switched to Wichita right around that time as a AAA team. But I saw the big red machine would come to town to do the majors versus AAA exhibition every year. George Foster hit a ball off a light tower. It was awesome. I mean, so it was always an easy drive. I saw a lot of games in the Riverfront, just nothing in Great American yet.
Yeah, no, well, you'll get to check that off the box soon enough, I have a feeling. So that'll be fun for you. And we'll wrap it up there, Jeff. Once again, remind everybody of what you got going over there at RotoWire.com.
Too many things. It's awesome. But we've got our podcasts, 5 a week now. We've got the radio show switching to daytimes beginning on Monday. We've got Ryan Roof just came out with a new article. He's doing his closer work. James Anderson's doing yeoman's work all off season, not just prospect work, but just a weekly podcast with all the great people in the industry. He's been doing a lot of draft strategies talk. It's great stuff there. Jason Collette, Todd Zola. I can go on and on. Check it all out. RotoWire.com/pod. Take a free peek behind that paywall, and hopefully you like it.
Yeah, I recommend it. Shouldn't have to. You guys should already be there. But I recommend RotoWire.com. And more importantly, good old Jeff Erickson here. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff_Erickson. Jeff, always thanks for joining me, my friend.
My pleasure, Bubba. Thank you.
Everybody, this is Benched with Bubba, your Cincinnati Reds season preview. Catch you guys next time.